Is this the remains of Thomas the Tank Engine? What happened to Thomas? There's no more face on it. I mean, obviously, if it was real, there was never a face on it. Oh my god, that was a whole jump scare. Yo, no train comes by that quickly. Oh my gosh, dude. You got me tweaking. The truth has finally surfaced. The real story behind Thomas and his friends that begin in wartime Germany and ends with a devastating dark secret has been revealed through Shed 17. So today we're gonna be checking out a re-upload of the Shed 17 video because the original video by Paul's Vids was age restricted. And the original video was like posted like 9, 10, 11 years ago, which is crazy that now it's re-emerging. Let's check this out, guys. Sodor Island, 1982. Let me know down below in the comments who grew up with Thomas the Train, because I grew up with Thomas the Train. I never saw anything like creepy about it. But looking back, like the faces, the animation, it did look a little bit strange. You just didn't know it at the time, you know, because you're a kid. Sodor Island, present day. Dun, 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 dun. I love the theme song. I don't know why. It's still in my head, but present day, it's pretty messed up, you know. It looks abandoned. Hey Thomas, how you doing? Wait. Is this the remains of Thomas the Tank Engine? What happened to Thomas? There's no more face on it. I mean, obviously, if it was real, there was never a face on it.
The stories that have charmed an entire generation. From the books to the television series, people around the world have grown up with the railway stories.
Yeah, it's like a children's story, right?
Cheerful characters. But the truth behind Thomas and his friends was no children's fantasy. The truth would be horrifying.
Horrifying how? Shed 17. Alright, we're gonna get down to the bottom of this, see what Shed 17 is all about.
It is 1945, and the remote island of Sodor, off the northwest coast of England, has emerged from the fog of World War II, relatively unscathed and untouched.
The island served as a detention camp for Germans living in England.
Keith Hartley, Sodor Engine. Wait, when was this? 1945?
Germans living in
1963 to 1986. Hey, my guy passed away real quick. He was like 23.
Professor came to be here.
Professor Wilhelm Goethe was born in 1903 in Munich, Germany. A doctor in biology, he became a prominent advisor to the ruling party in the 30s.
Dude, that is so messed up, man.
In 1939, as war escalated, he, his wife Olga, and 4-year-old son Hans fled the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that they did. The World at War, 1973. As I resided in the lower ranks of the party, I was increasingly abhorred at the direction my government had taken. The things that were rumored to be doing terrified me.
That's what he wanted.
He's a good guy, man. He's a good guy for seeing the truth.
Experiments were hard to stomach even for his own people.
In truth, he had become a prominent figure in the government. But as his work progressed, questions and objections had been raised in the higher echelons of the Reich.
His work with genetics and DNA was
Dr. Owen Rath, lab assistant.
The cracking and manipulating of the human genome. What Professor Goetze was most successful in, however, was keeping his history a secret until his death.
In an attempt to gain favor among the German hierarchy, Wilhelm Goetze was at the forefront of the government's most fanatical policies. In 1938, he was influential in instigating the infamous Sajmelnacht, the Night of Sawdust. But, as his experiments advanced, he became a much less popular figure and soon feared for his and his family's lives.
As soon as he escaped,
yeah, I mean, he was behind some of the most heinous crimes. Well, I mean, they weren't seen as crimes at the time because the government was the one behind it.
Following their release, Professor Goetze, Olga, and young Hans chose to remain. After studying under his father, Hans left at the age of 18 and went to university on the mainland, studying biology and engineering, writing several pioneering papers about genetics and the splicing of DNA with mechanical
Dang, the son grew up to be a genius as well.
The technique of
Hans
manipulating
Goetze.
genetic material to splice with mechanical attachments. However, much like his father, the British government became more and more concerned with Hans Goetz's proposals, so he was forced
What was he trying to do?
financial backing from home.
His dad left Germany with quite a few bob, so Hans came back. He saw our little island as some sort of refuge where he could work in peace. Soon every nutcase and eccentric was coming over.
Is that why he decided to head on over to
Hans had
Sodor
set up
Island?
Sodor Research, a small lab near the town of Alsborough, but soon the enterprise began supplying medical.
He was like, I'd be able to do whatever I want if I went there by
A
myself.
large complex comprising its own links to the growing
Whoa.
Sodor rail system.
Young Abby Collins from the town was working there when Professor Hans took a liking to her. Soon they were married, and not long after, the town was buzzing with news of her pregnancy.
Baby Thomas was born in
Baby Tom.
1968.
What?
Throughout
Baby Thomas? What is the meaning of this?
the early years of his life, he would watch the
They
growing
named
railway network
the
with
train after
fascination.
his son,
He
right?
couldn't get enough of trains. His dad bought him one of the first video cameras, and it'd be on the platforms every day. You can see
Oh, we've
me in
got
some
some
of those
footage.
tapes.
Hiya, Mr. Hartley.
Morning, Thomas. But he was friends with everyone, even that simple bloke who could only say where he lived.
Sodor.
But his favourite trains were the old steam engines.
Steam engines were a dying art on the British mainland, but Hans also had a fondness for them, much like his son, and likes to keep them running for our
They like the
purposes,
steam engine, huh?
taking orders from the labs to the growing docks, or to the mainland to be transferred to modern postal express trains.
But as the Sodor rail system expanded, it found itself increasingly under the supervision of the new British rail network.
Oh, wow.
And appointed a new
That
controller.
expanded so quick.
Get off my f***ing platform!
Oh,
Sir Topham Hatt, born into money, he took
Dude,
his
he was
ridiculous
just a
name to
kid,
heart
man.
and started wearing a top hat all the time. Of course, we islanders had a different name for him.
Fat bastard. I've never met such a cold-hearted as him. He banned all
Yo, he
steam
was
engine
not holding back.
volunteers and cut
Sir
most of
Topham
rail
Hatt.
employees.
you see
Shut
him.
down the branch line and the smaller stations.
He was the
He
railway
was happy to let the
controller.
railway rust away, just like they did to main line.
But the fortunes of the railway were about to take a profitable turn. A stroke
Okay.
of luck for the island that would result from tragedy.
Wait, what?
Come
It was
on,
all from
go to
tragedy. How
bed.
so?
What's the time? Thomas, get moving.
Young Thomas loved following railway. He'd be out all the time, hoping to catch a new train on his camera.
11:45's coming through soon. He won't wait for us.
Unfortunately, he didn't take as much notice of the safety signs.
Beware of the
Not being very good.
trains. Thomas?
Not missed it yet. Wait for the 11:45. Never mind the 11:45.
Thomas, I know you like
Must be
using your
late
cameras
again.
and stuff, but
Thomas, come on. It's always held up.
oh my god, that was a whole jump scare. Yo, no train comes by that quickly. That is crazy.
Held up.
Bro, literally, he turned around, boom. That was the last thing I expected. I thought he was gonna get hit by a train, but not that
Hans was
fast.
mortified. He disappeared from public
Was a
view
family
and
tragedy.
into the labs. Locking himself in, he wouldn't allow anyone in there. Eventually his father Wilhelm came to see him.
In a few days, a major laboratory had been locked down, followed by an engine maintenance shed, which was to become off limits to all.
All production
wonder
was
why.
shut down, orders weren't met.
Right
The
after
two
his son
Professor
died,
Goetzes
too?
Didn't care. More
said,
and more
"Stop taking
equipment
pictures
was
of me.
being delivered daily, but
I'm
no
working
one
on
was allowed
something
in
using
Shed
human
17.
genomes and putting a
Questions
tank engine
started to be
together.
asked on Sodor. Where were the Goetzes? Would there be no funeral for young Thomas? And where was the body?
The body's
They arranged
gone.
for Thomas to
It's
be transferred
disappeared.
to a mainland hospital. He'd been taken to the complex but was never moved by rail. We all assumed the obvious. He was still in lab.
But if Thomas was there, was he still alive? And what was the purpose of keeping him at the complex?
Oh, we all know
Almost a
why.
year after the accident, the doors of Sodor Research were
Oh
reopened.
my gosh,
In
dude,
an
that
open
is
invitation to the
horrifying.
people of the island, Thomas rolled out of Shed 17.
That is
Took me a
terrifying.
moment to realise what it was I was looking at.
Dude, everyone's gotta be terrified by
Looked at me
looking
and
at that.
said,
Hiya, Mr. Hartley.
It dawned on me what Hans Goetzer and his dad had done.
Oh my god.
One woman passed out as Thomas
Oh my
smiled at
goodness,
us.
dude.
I had to run off around the side of the shed.
Dude, he's trying to catch a breath, man. Oh my gosh.
News spread across the country. the world's media rushed to Sodor.
Like, why would you do this to your own kid, man? I get you were obsessed with human
tried to
genomes and
interview
stuff, but
me.
your own son?
I became a bit of a celebrity.
News at 10.
Controversy on Sodor Island. Questions asked about science ethics.
It's fair to say I was pretty nervous at times,
Joined now by Keith Hartley.
but I think I put on a brave face.
What
Live
do you
from
think when you
Sodor
first
Island.
came to meet Thomas the Tank Engine.
He tried to keep his composure. That was no, he was not composed at all. Weekend
Most of the mates said I looked
World.
pretty good on telly. The mayor said I'd
Sodor
represented
experiment.
the people of Sodor very well. It's important to show you're confident when people
Kindness
are
or
asking you
cruelty?
awkward questions.
Good evening. An act of mercy or a crime against humanity? I am joined now by Keith
Even when
Hartley.
some of the questions got difficult.
I feel like
made
that's
sure
really
I knew
unfair
what
to
I
the,
was
to
talking
Thomas.
about.
What was your reaction when you first met?
He did not deserve to be turned into a train.
If you can't make an informed opinion,
Poor guy, man. Poor
or if you
guy.
can't string together 2 words on telly.
And the thing is, he
Well,
has to conduct
maybe
that
you
train.
shouldn't be
Well,
on
technically,
there.
he doesn't have to anymore.
Admittedly, the subject matter was a bit bizarre sometimes.
There are some dark forces at work here.
No, not again.
You're alright as long as you could win over the audience.
He hasn't said a single word.
They're not laughing with you.
Dude, they might as well just
The
ask
Goetze
someone
family
else at this
refused to
point.
answer any questions.
He
Behind
couldn't.
closed doors, the only question they agreed to answer had been asked repeatedly. Would Thomas work on the railway? The response was an emphatic no.
Thomas's DNA had been reprogrammed to accept and adapt to the engine structure, using the engine's internal system to maintain his organic functions. What no one could be sure of was how much of the engine was mechanical and how much was organic material.
That
Thomas
is
had been
pretty
able to move
disturbing.
around without coaches, but to
Ew.
work on the railway,
Why does he look like
his
that?
engine would need to be fired up and operated by
He's
a
like,
driver
oh
and fireman.
yeah,
Since
give
no
me
one could
more
be sure how
coal.
much of the engine was Thomas, the
Oh.
pressure caused by the engine could rupture his organs from the inside.
That's so weird.
And the incredible heat could boil him alive. Professor Hans and his father vowed Thomas would never work on the railways.
Similarly, the 2 professors were to refuse many requests by people from around the world who wished to be biofused into engines.
They were
What?
billionaires offering to pay whatever they wanted to be converted into an engine or some other transport.
Why would they want to do that?
Train enthusiasts too. And people with
Who is it? Is
terminal
that John
illnesses
Cena?
were desperate to be made into trains, but for some reason the Kurtzes refused.
But there would be other interested parties.
Oh, it's
eager
that
to
guy
seize on
again.
the biofusion
Mr. Top
gold
Hat.
mine. The independently wealthy Topham Hatt staged a hostile takeover, and within weeks had bought a controlling share in Sodor.
He's about to do the
Research.
same to
Immediately, the
other
policy
people
of
as
the
well,
company
huh?
changed. And so
That's
did
where
the
Thomas
ethics.
and his
The
friends
medical
come
supply
from.
wing was shut down, and work began on mass biofusion experiments and operations. Anyone who could afford it, some handing over their whole fortunes, were turned into engines.
But, along with the new policy,
You're gonna
there would
let
be
that
worse to
happen?
come. Biofused engines would be allowed, then obliged, to work on the railways.
No
The
way.
first one we fired up was James. He didn't have the money some of these
James,
people had,
the
and
tank
so agreed
engine.
to basically sign his life away if they wanted to experiment further or to take massive risks like
Who's
this.
James?
As usual, the fact
Or like,
had
who
everything
was
recorded.
the person
All
behind
kept
James's
classified, you
soul?
understand?
These recordings, shown for the first time, reveal the extent of Sir Topham Hatt's experiments.
It was horrible watching these engines work on the railways some days. But the tourists wanted to see it. They expected it. And for me, it was work.
But, with the new engines increasing work
Oh my
schedule,
gosh.
came
Oh my
more
gosh.
and
How many
more
of them are there?
accidents.
Edward was
There's like
supposed to have
5, 6 different
problems.
ones.
He'd been filming all day for the new TV series they'd announced, and for his last scene,
TV
he had to
series,
pull into
deleted
Wellesley
footage.
station and whistle to the kids on the platform.
Whistled Edward. Thank you very much.
What the?
Sadly, this was only the first in an increasing number of
It's
incidents.
like his internal
Hammond had
organs
an
coming
obsession
out.
with aircraft and had paid to become a
Oh,
helicopter.
that sounded pretty
The
painful.
operation had gone well. But
Now there's
we had to ban
helicopters?
him from being allowed to attempt flight.
In an experiment kept secret until now, Mavis the diesel engine was to be the first biofused locomotive used on the railway.
We fueled her up and everything seemed fine.
Oh my gosh.
Then things got out of hand.
Oh my gosh, something's about to go
The
wrong.
diesel began to burn her internal organs.
Oh.
Everything organic in the engine was soon burning.
Have you ever heard a locomotive scream in pain? We tried rinsing out the fuel tank with water.
That's gotta be a horrifying
Well, then it
sight.
was too
That's like,
late.
that's like
Mavis's
combustion.
body would be kept under lock and key indefinitely.
It's like internal
In an
combustion
unexpected
from a
turn,
train.
Topham Hatt would ban fueled engines from being used on the island.
Harold was
Yeah,
never
good call.
told why he couldn't fly, but the decision would keep him alive, if only for a little while longer.
Oh my
In fact,
gosh.
Unknown to the outside world, there had been many failed
I thought
biofusion
they were
experiments.
actually gonna try to fly that.
They kept the accidents a secret, and legal disclaimers had to be signed by anyone being biofused. So there'd be no legal action taken if anything went wrong.
This footage shows engines being displayed to tourists during the off-season. Many of these engines
Toby
were
the
failed
tank
biofusion
engine.
experiments and were too ill to work.
Birdie the
or were
car.
already dead.
They had to put a stop to that, though.
So they were basically just being used as tourist attractions. Bro just self-destructed. Percy?
Everyone started asking the same thing. Why had
What
Thomas, the first engine, worked so well?
Despite all the troubles the other engines had, Thomas had worked fine, seemingly oblivious.
Thomas
to
is
the
just
other
built
engine
different, you know?
problems and accidents.
Why were
Keeping
people
their
trying to like
problems a secret
replicate
from
it?
the outside world, Sodor Research began selling the technology to other countries.
Why would you do that?
Multi-million-pound deals. These countries would have less.
People only
qualms
think about the money,
use of
man.
Fuel engines.
They don't think about
And even
the
modern
negative
electric
consequences.
trains, even failed biofused engines were being displayed publicly in what would become a kind of freak show.
What?
To his horror,
Double
Professor
faced?
Hans Goetze saw what this was leading to. Slavery of engines. and
They're like,
immediately
no,
resigned.
we're going this way. No, I want to go that way.
His father,
Reconstruction?
Wilhelm, would go one step further.
What? Hans, Mr. Gotze, what are you doing? You're taking it too far. This is already one step way too far. Turning your son into a tank engine? Steam engine? You're too old for this, man. Oh my gosh, the fact that he has Hitler as his like, yeah, he looks forward, he looks up to the wrong people, that's for sure. What are you about to do? Sir? Sir? Bro, you've got to be kidding. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Sir! He actually did it.
Professor Wilhelm couldn't come to terms with what was happening to his engines, and took the only course he thought he could take.
That fat got a load of us rail staff over to his house to clean up after the body was taken away. You should have seen it. Sawdust everywhere. It took us days.
But such attempts to keep the incidents on Sodor a secret were short-lived after a very public accident.
What
Gordon
happened
paid
now?
An enormous amount to be Sodor's first 462 configuration engine, much bigger than any other engine.
It's
at the
crazy
time.
because this is
We
barely
were
just
terrified
scratching
that
the surface
shite
too.
would make us fire up that
And this is
huge
just the beginning.
We were shocked to discover he had insisted on being able to work on the railway. So, one night, after the regular staff had finished for the day, fat some of the rail staff
They
and
gotta
I
stop calling him that,
fired up
man.
the engine.
As usual, these experiments were filmed. This footage has never been broadcast before.
Dr. Ruth and I filmed it all.
It might be a bit shaky. It was handheld.
You got arthritis, my
He
guy?
complained about the heat. Then that turned to pleas to douse the fire.
But that fat bastard held us back. He wanted to see what would happen.
He argued he had put a lot of work into Gordon, and the chances to get him working were too great an opportunity. He
Oh
was
no,
literally
he's
cooking
pushing
from the
Thomas too
inside.
hard,
By
man.
the time we were allowed to act,
Bro's overexerting himself. Why would you? Oh my. Oh my. He just imploded.
I wasn't as near to him as some of them. All I could do was run. I was lucky to get away with
Did
some
Thomas just
thin
die for a
clothes.
second time?
Others weren't so lucky.
The fateful few hours following the accident
Oh my
would
gosh.
seal the fate of Sodor Research.
the fat stopped us trying to put out the fire, insisting that any evidence would fall back on us.
He kept repeating, "This was all your fault.
He's
You
so
knew the
twisted, man.
dangers. You're legally to blame. He stopped us calling for ambulances or the fire brigade.
We told him.
He just
"These are
let it
injured
happen?
people here. They're going to die unless we do something." But he kept saying, "No one from the outside can come in. No one can see this."
Finally, someone suggested we airlift them to hospital. Harold was banned from flying for his own safety, but we thought the risk was worth it.
Killing
Dude,
Harold was a nervous experience.
this is just this
But
disaster
the same
waiting to
reaction
happen.
Mavis had.
We all breathed a sigh of relief and loaded the injured people
There's
aboard.
no way.
Then it all went wrong.
Yeah, of course it is. Let's see what happens. This is their first time flying too. Oh no. Oh no. Bro, so much blood is coming out of their head. Rip. They done messed up,
Harold's
man.
engine had worked fine, but what no one realized was most of Harold's lower extremities were permanently fused to his propeller system.
So it's like
As
twisting
Harold's
it.
rotor blades began to spin, vital organs would be drawn into the motor and tear him apart from the inside.
Oh my god.
Well, now there was no covering it up. The smoke could be seen all morning, but news people were here in an instant.
They
We
all
were told
saw
to
it.
close gates and start clearing
Too
up
late.
the mess ourselves, with some help.
Henry Thierry was the only 420 gauge engine on the island.
So
A large
Thomas
engine
Thomas
that had
passed
been working
away
on the railway
for a
regularly,
second time,
had become
basically.
popular among tourists
Poor
and
Thomas, man.
Henry was called into the yard to help tidy the mess, working
If
mostly
only,
at night.
you know,
He
if
would
only
try to
Thomas's
bear the
father
wreckage
wasn't so
under cover of
selfish and
We had to
wanted
work
to
quickly and
experiment on
quietly,
his
and
only
then
kid,
wreckage
like
from
his
the yard
only son
away
like
to the
that.
sea. Then one night, the points were set wrong, and we were diverted to another shed.
Henry had inadvertently been
Wait,
sent
shed
to
17?
number 17,
What is this?
where Thomas had been biofused into a tank engine and had subsequently been declared out of bounds.
It was dark, and these sheds all looked the same. I unlocked the doors, and Henry rolled in. I didn't see what Henry saw, because as soon as
What
he
was
put his
it?
head through doors, he bolted and reversed out.
Oh my dude.
Keith locked
Even
the
he was
shelf
scared.
without seeing what was inside. But Henry
He said no
had
thank you.
seen it all.
We wouldn't even dare talk about that shed, more than our job's worth.
But Henry had decided to speak up and confront Sir Topham Hatt. That night, he arrived at the railway controller's office.
don't
I
know
like
what
how
they
it
said in
rolls up
there,
straight
but
to
there
him.
were his voices at times. They had a shouting match for 10 minutes, then Henry left, back to the shed.
By pure chance, he was sent back to the same shed as Thomas that night, and with one sentence, he sealed both their fates.
What's he about to
Henry
do?
only said one thing to him: stay away from shed 17.
Oh, so
The
that
next
wasn't
day,
that wasn't
had
Thomas?
a new job for him.
That blew up? I thought that was Thomas.
The Flying Kipper route ran through the night.
World in Action,
delivering
Flying
fresh
Killer,
from the docks to the
1983.
mainland, across the highest altitude line in the country.
That old line was treacherous at best, but when Henry was put on there, in the middle of winter, it was a death trap.
In 1970, fish had started being delivered by road to the mainland. It was safer and more cost-effective, and the line was declared redundant, dangerous and unnecessary. It came as a shock to the islanders when it was reopened.
That fat shite always hated Henry. He didn't like his cheerful manner, and he clearly had other lifestyle choices when he was a human. Fat wanted Henry away from the other engines, and Kipper Run was a death sentence.
On the night of February the 8th, 1983, Henry had only been on the Kipper run for a week. The following incident
He
was
derailed?
made into a book and later recreated in the television series.
Oh my gosh.
This is the train the railwaymen call the Flying Kipper.
Can you believe they put it in a kid's story? Of course, that fat
Was that
changed
actually
quite a
real?
few of
I
the
feel like that
facts.
wasn't real.
They couldn't know the points from the main line to a siding were frozen, and the home signal should have been
Oh
set at
no, that's how he derailed.
Snow had forced it down.
As the train approached the most treacherous part of the line, unnoticed
He's
to
going
Henry,
full
his
speed too.
driver and firemen, the points had diverted them to the adjoining siding and right into the path of another train.
With like a bunch of gas tanks on it. But a bunch of like fuel tanks on it. Straight into it. Head on. Oh my gosh. Just straight into just explosives. 5:46 in the morning too. Wait, he's still alive?
In fact,
Oh.
Alan Barry died from their injuries. Slowly.
Not
in
the conductor
snow.
though.
The poor bastard.
By midday, the recovery operation was underway, and Sir Topham Hatt had arrived.
Cheer up, Henry. It wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident.
Yeah, but dude,
These
you really
images
put
from
him
a
through
train
that?
spotter's camera were taken the evening before and were successfully covered up by the Sodor Railway Board.
He's
for
so
10
twisted,
years.
man. This guy only cares
There's a
about the
railway
money.
spike in points, blocking them. Of course, that had disappeared by the time we got there.
I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines.
Crewy.
Crew. We all
Crew.
knew what that meant.
They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox.
So they're basically just gonna like
Crewe was,
reconstruct
at the
them.
time, one of only 2 scrap metal yards in the UK capable of handling and recycling organic material as well as engine parts.
You'll feel a different engine and won't
Yeah,
need
you're just
special
gonna
coal
replace
anymore.
his entire body.
With those few words,
gonna be a
he'd
whole
sentence
different
Henry
train.
to death.
Won't that be nice? Yes, sir, said Henry doubtfully.
Everyone knew we wouldn't
Hen-
see him again.
Yeah,
And everything
Henry
was
knew
sorted
that
nice
it would
and
be
neat
over.
For that fat
Dude, that's gotta be messed up, man. You're just cutting off his face.
As news got out about Henry's accident, it didn't take long for Thomas to realise Henry had been disposed of.
Oh
because of what he
no.
knew.
The next evening, Thomas had been put on his own for the night at Knapford Station. As
What's
his driver
Thomas
and
gonna
fireman
do?
left, under what was left of his own steam, he set off for the Sodor Research Complex.
Oh yeah, he said, I'm gonna take
He had
matters
a
into
small
my own
amount of
hands
burning
now.
fuel in his firebox, but he was mostly moving under his own strength. It took Thomas 3 hours to get to the complex.
Oh.
The effort to get there nearly killing him.
Oh my gosh.
Thomas arrived.
He had
at
no
midnight,
like coal
with no one
fueling him
around.
either.
He made his way to the shed where he was created. What he found was the answers to his questions, and many others.
Since Sodor Research had become producing biofuels vehicles, the
Shed
world
17.
had asked, why had the first biofusion operation worked so well, but nearly every operation since had failed? Sadly, Thomas found the reasons inside.
Probably because, you know, people rushed the other experiments. And what is this? This is the truth, the secret behind Shed 17.
Thomas had never been the first operation. He hadn't even been second.
What shed number 17
Oh my
contained
god.
was evidence of several attempts to create a tank engine with Thomas's DNA. These had
Bro.
been early tests made by people with no experience of an experiment on this scale. Ill-planned and unprepared, these procedures had used DNA from the human Thomas.
So you're
and
telling
had
me
been as much the real Thomas as the tank engine.
there's
the
been
world had
multiple
come to know
Thomases
and love.
before him. Oh my gosh, dude.
To us, Thomas the Tank Engine had been the Thomas we all knew as a boy.
He was
Part
just
of
a
the
clone.
family the whole island's population had known and respected since Wilhelm first arrived.
Well,
In
now he
actuality,
sees.
this tank engine was no more the real Thomas than all the failed creations made over the 12 months before.
That's so sad.
This Thomas had all the human Thomas's memories and experiences. He had learned what Thomas had learned, known who Thomas had known, but so had all the previous
Yep.
failures.
But they just failed. Oh my gosh.
Wilhelm and Hans Goetze had to learn through trial and error how to
On their
bring their
own
Thomas
son,
back from
man.
the dead. The following experiments had not had the same work put into them, resulting in the freak engines and aircraft that had developed so many problems on Sodor Island and around the world.
Like, if this is
In
the
Shed
real
17,
true story behind Thomas, like,
Thomas
that
wouldn't
is so
discover who he
sad.
was, but
This
in
just
fact,
ruined my childhood,
who
guys.
he wasn't.
This just ruined my childhood, whether this is real or not, true or not. What's he about to see in this green? Oh, what? What the heck? Who is that? Hey, yo. Oh, his whole spine came out. This is like the inner body of what Thomas really is. Oh my gosh, dude. He got me tweaking. He really has a whole like a skeleton inside of his. Oh my gosh, this is such a chilling like visual. That's terrifying, dude. He's like, I've got arms. He wanted to close his eyes. He didn't want to see what it was. Bro, why did any of that just happen? I'm disturbed.
I had no idea he was only one of many.
I'm sick, bro.
None of us did. But I guess as time passed, we stopped asking all the questions we had at first. We were just glad our friend was back with us. He could work for us. He became our servant in a way. Someone who drew in the crowds, helped create jobs, was eager to work.
Yeah, well, now he knows the truth.
Thought of us as his friends. Sadly, over time we came to think of him as just really useful.
Dude, poor Thomas, man. His father was a bad person. Poor kid. 1983, a government inquiry was launched into the events of Sodor Island and the labs of Sodor Research. Biofusion was banned the following year. I mean, it should have been banned from the beginning. Compulsory work for biofused engines was finally banned after the Windscale nuclear flash test of July 1984. What? Damn! Sir Topham Hatt disappeared without trace. His whereabouts were never discovered. He would now be on 102 years old. Well, he's probably not alive anymore unless he biofused himself. Thomas the Tank Engine remains in a specialist unit where he has currently undergone 23 reconstructive operations. My guy's cooked. Biofusion was later banned in Europe, although biofused engines are still required to work. Sadly, in China, biofusion is still compulsory for all political prisoners. Qingtai Tibet Railway. What? Always on time, never complain. Dang, man. They're just torturing them. Hey, yo. Oh my gosh, they're going so fast. Starring Abi Lee, Daniel T, Paul H. Guys, go check out the original video. Shed 17 just ruined my childhood. What the heck did I just watch, guys? That apparently is the dark secret and the truth behind Thomas the Tank Engine. And guys, the fact that they have a part 2 and it's called Project G1. If you guys want me to react to that as well, let me know down below in the comments. But I think I've had enough of whatever we just saw for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, peace.